Good morning, South Florida. I'm Tobias Hamilton from the Hamilton Piano Company, and this is our weekly tutorial of what we're going through, what we actually do here at our piano rebuilding facility. And one of the things that we're working on is this action. This is for a Kauai grand piano that we sold to a customer. I'm going through the regulation process on it to make sure that the action plays the best that it can. And one of the things I'm working on right now on this section is what we call tension spring. When you press down on the key here, you can see how the hammer checks with the back check, but what's happening is it's not slightly rising. That shows that the spring is a little too weak. So what I'm going to do here is make an adjustment on this screw here so that I can get a slight rise after the hammer checks here. Now you see how that pops up like that? That's pretty good, but it's still a little strong, so I'm going to back it off just a hair. And the nice thing with this repetition here is that it has an adjustment screw that we can use, that we can turn. Some other manufacturers don't have that. And what I'm doing actually is, this is a repetition from another manufacturer. This is a Steinway repetition. And this spring right here is what makes that hammer come back up either fast or slow. So what I'm doing is I'm adjusting. There's a screw that's on this repetition. It's not on this one, but I'm adjusting it. And that is this screw right here, so that I can get the exact speed that I have the hammer come up. If it's too strong, what will happen is the pianist will feel it in the key. And if it's too weak, the jack cannot return quick enough underneath for repetition. So, but this is what's on the inside of a grand piano. And this is the motor of the piano. This is what there's about 6,000 parts here. And this is one of the reasons why pianos have more moving parts than cars, because of you can see how intricate the details are. And when I press down on the key, you can see how all these parts have to move just so in order for the action to work properly. So I've got this one right where I want it. And now I'm going to go to the next one. And you see how that's popping up so high right there? That's too much. So I'm going to back this off a little bit so that I can get this to pretty good. I want a little less. I like to have just a slight rise in the hammer. And regulating on pianos is something that's done approximately every 8 to 10 years, depending on the use of the piano. But for commercial uses like my concert halls, I have to go through this process every year to make sure that the action is playing optimal for performances, because the one thing you don't want to happen during performance is that the pianist doesn't like to touch, or that that there's a jack is not adjusted properly. What I mean by the jack, that's this piece right here. And if this isn't positioned properly underneath the knuckle, which this is the knuckle right here, this jack isn't positioned properly, it could slip and then the key couldn't work, and it could, it could make for a problem. So you want to make sure that everything is adjusted properly. So what I'm going through is I'm going to go through these here and get this exactly the way I want it. It's beautiful. That's nice. Just a tad bit too slow for me. A little more. There we go. That's good. A little slow. So I'm adjusting this here. I've already gone through a lot of the regulation process where I've adjusted the jack positioning, the balancier height, the back checks. I haven't done the back checks here yet because I wanted to finish this up. And I'm going to show you that here too in a few minutes after I get this where I want it to be. It's a little strong. I'm going to adjust it here. And that adjustment screw saves a lot of time. The other way you have to do it if you don't have this adjustment screw is you have to actually caress this spring here with a special tool and get it just right. And if you go too far, then you got to take the spring out, bend it, and so this is very nice to have this adjustment screw to be able to adjust it properly. That one's a little weak, so we're going to make this a little stronger. this will, all of these regulation points that we have to adjust will make this action play the best that it can. And when you have a pianist that's this pianist who purchased the piano is a very fine pianist, you know, we want to make him very happy, because that's what we do here. We go through all of our pianos, make sure that they're playing the best that they can. And this is part of how we do that. So you can feel that that's a little, just a hair too strong. I want to back it off because you want to make it even throughout the whole keyboard. And once we get these last few done, this is what was taught to me by my father and my uncle years ago. And you know, this design has been around for over 100 years, the design of the piano. They modified it with using composite parts instead of wood parts, but as far as the actual design goes, it's been like this for quite a long time. And, you know, but there's just so much that's involved with when you're regulating a piano, because you have different points of regulation. The one point that we're doing right now is the strength of the spring here to adjust it. And then you also have, this is to adjust the height of your balancier, because you do not want your jack, if this balancier wasn't adjusted properly, what would happen is this jack would be too high, and then it wouldn't work properly. So you want this jack to be slightly below here, the balancier. The other thing we were talking about earlier is the jack positioning here, where this jack, this piece that moves here, you want it to be right in position with the center line of the knuckle here with the rosewood molding. And then you also have your other height here, which just is a capstan adjustment to make sure your hammer is a certain height distance away from the string. Now the next thing that we're going to do is check the back check. But before we do that, I just want to show you this too, is you see how the hammer slightly rises up because I'm pressing the key slow, but then it drops and comes back up slightly. What that is this is called let off. So basically, if the string is about here, the hammer drops, and that's called the drop, and then you have your aftertouch. The aftertouch is a little deep on here, so I'm going to adjust that when I get to that process of the regulating, and I do that inside the piano. When you're working on the action here on the bench, we call it bench regulation, and then I'm going to take this, put it inside the piano, and critique everything, make sure everything's lining up properly and working properly. So what we're doing here next is making sure that the back checks are all checking pretty evenly. So you can see here that when you hit it at the same amount of force, that the hammers are pretty much even. So I'm just making a slight adjustment on the hammer here. And as you can tell, we're very busy here at Hamilton Piano Company. Our phone rings quite a bit. Just make slight adjustments to make sure that the hammers are all checking at the same height. And on some other back check regulation, you have sometimes you want to check the hammer a little higher to the back check here, where it catches a little higher. That'll allow the jack to get underneath the knuckle quicker. For concert work, that's how we would regulate it. For in the home, it's not necessary unless it's a concert pianist that we're doing the service for. And that's pretty good. See how they're all in alignment there. So now that the back checks are done, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the hammer line. You can see that some hammers are a little bit higher than others. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise them up and even them out together here. And I have a gauge that I need to grab, but I can still do it by eye without it. And I'm just slightly moving them down. You can see how they're starting to fall in line here. And I've already done the hammer line roughly so that they're close. So my regulation, I can work on the regulation points. And you can see how all the hammers are nice and line there. And on older pianos, it's really hard to get a perfect regulation because certain parts will, have worn out. The felts have worn out, the knuckles have worn out, things like that. But one of the other things that we've done too is we've reshaped these hammers to get rid of the grooves from the strings, so that it has a nice clean strike point when it hits the string, and this makes it better for voicing also. Voicing, what that is what that deals with is the hammers here. There's different types of voicing for different types of hammers that you have to do. You can steam hammers, you can use needles and hammers to soften tone. You can insert lacquer thinner, like a 5-to-1 solution, to get the hammer to be a little bit harder so that you can get a brighter tone. It all depends on, everyone's got a different ear and a different touch. So it all depends on the pianist, but what we do is we like to get a nice, rich, soft tone, warm tone from the piano, so that you want the hammer to actually not just hit the string, but you want it to bounce off the string. And when you have a nice, soft hammer, you get the most well-rounded sound out of it. So this is something I thought I would show you guys. This is just part of what we do here. There's so many different things that we do when we're rebuilding a piano. Regulation is part of it. Tuning is another. Moving a piano, rebuilding a piano, unstringing it, restringing it, refinishing it is an art all in itself. Building soundboards and pin blocks, that's another art form. And this is a profession that's dying. There's not many people that come into this profession. And if I'm correct, I believe there's more people that are either retiring from this profession than that are coming into it. So that's why I thought I would let the world know and educate everyone on what actually goes into a piano, so you have a better understanding of what's actually happening inside of a piano. But I hope you share this with your friends. I hope this was interesting for you, and next week we're going to have some more tricks and tips for you on something else that we'll come up with, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, and have a good day.